And good morning, friends. Welcome to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben, and our number today and every day on The Bright Side, and we love hearing from you, 844-236-6010, 844-236-6010. If you have questions about health, nutrition, prescription drugs, if you want to get off your meds and get on a good nutritional supplement program, we can help you do that. And if you want to comment or have a success story you'd like to share, just contribute to the conversation. 844-236-6010 is our number. We'll get your calls. In our next segment, we'll talk to Rebecca Dawson. At the bottom of the hour, Rebecca Dawson is an authoress. She's got numerous books and webinars, and she's going to talk to us about the game of purpose. And her new book is The Agreement and the New Human Experience. We'll talk to Rebecca Dawson. She's got all kinds of interesting stuff at RebeccaDawson.net. We'll talk to Rebecca at the bottom of the hour, and then we'll get your calls in our next segment, assuming we have any calls at 844-236-6010. If you want to purchase longevity products, go to brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And don't forget to take a look at the business opportunity. For a one-time $30 fee, you can be in business for yourself. Call 866-735-2470 if you want more info, or just click on the Join the Team link at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com. So, we have been talking about my absolute favorite subject, one of my absolute favorite subjects in the world of nutrition, which is lipids or fats. I first immersed myself in the world of lipids when I was studying skin, when I was working for Blistex, studying the lips, actually. And it turns out that fat deficiencies are the major cause of dry skin and dry lips. Fat deficiencies. And many people are deficient in fats. You know, essential fatty acid deficiency, by the way, is a billable diagnosis that your insurance company will pay for a diagnosis of essential fatty acid deficiency. Now, you have to have a full-blown essential fatty acid deficiency that causes severe dry skin, or in a kid, maybe failure to thrive. And essential fatty acids are associated with things like the immune system and the inflammatory system in the skin and the heart and the brain. And they're also involved in the production of hormones, specifically steroid hormones. And they're also involved in the growth in the production of cells, cell membranes, as we talked about. And that's not just the outside membrane, but it's also the inner membranes, which is super cool. So essential fatty acid deficiencies will show up as failure to, an inability to get energy. And it's all about energy. Health is energy. Life is energy. Everything's energy. You ever wonder what energy is? We hear that term energy all the time. Energy is really... We can only define it as a capacity. Energy is a capacity, but we intuitively know it's more than that. Energy is a something that gives us life, but technically it's defined as the ability or the capacity to do work, the work of life. And fats play a major role in helping the body do life, especially stress. And everything's kind of stress management. Everything's sort of stress because life is stressful. And when I say stress, I mean pressure or burden. Or maybe you could define stress as a compelling force for work to happen, something that forces work to happen. So a stressor is something that makes you work. And work is energy. So stressors require energy in order for us to deal with the stressors. If you don't have the energy to deal with the stressors, guess what happens? You die. Actually, in the case of human beings, you die gradually. When you don't have enough energy to handle stress, and by stress I mean anything that inputs that requires you to do work. Everything from breathing is stress, and using this definition, breathing is stress, eating is stress, walking is stress. You want to get out of your head, want to get out of our heads that stress is something like, your lousy relationship, or the government, or taxes, or money. Stress is anything that forces you to do work. And even breathing or eating or walking or moving or thinking, they're all stresses in a way. And if you don't have energy to do them, you can't think, you can't breathe, you can't walk, you can't do anything. And it happens gradually. Disease is the appearance of an inability to do work, to handle stress, a lack of energy. It's all energy. That's what Dr. Sinatra, we had Dr. Steven Sinatra on a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of his epiphanies. He was one of the first guys to talk about this idea that it's all about energy when it comes to cardiac health, when it comes to heart health. He's a cardiologist, but it's true about everything. And the reason lipids are so important is because they're batteries. They store energy. Water-soluble nutrients conduct energy. Fats store energy, especially in the membrane. And that means the immune system. And for all this noise we're making about wearing masks, I just found out I was going to go do a talk today, and they told me, make sure you wear a mask. And I said, Well, I don't know how I'm going to talk with a mask, because everybody thinks a mask is going to protect you. How about essential fatty acids? Why isn't the government with this $2 trillion stimulus package throwing in essential fatty acids for everybody, or vitamin C for everybody? And they know good and well that nutrients are important for the immune system. When Donald Trump had his supposed COVID experience, they gave him vitamin D. They gave him zinc. They gave him vitamin C. They even gave him melatonin. Did you know melatonin is important for the immune system? They know supplementation. The powers that be, when I say they, the powers that be know that supplementation is important and can be helpful. That's why essential fatty acids, omega-3 essential fatty acids, okay? Omega-3 essential fats is actually a prescription drug. Yes, they patented, they tweaked it a little bit. They changed the molecule a little bit, and they called it a prescription drug. And now you can pay $120 for a month's supply of your prescription drug, essential fatty acid. That's how important EFAs are. The drug companies recognized that it was worth tweaking the molecule to create a patented version of a prescription, which of course does not give you all the benefits that the natural stuff does, by the way. It may be more targeted for the heart, and it's used for the heart, I think, for blood pressure, but and for blood fats. Because, by the way, essential fatty acids are very important for something called dyslipidemia. Dys meaning messed up, lipids meaning fats, messed up, and emia meaning blood, messed up blood fats. Messed up blood fats, now that's a serious problem. Triglycerides, they call them. Elevated triglycerides, or the wrong triglycerides, rancid triglycerides. Those are serious health problems. And one of the best ways to protect yourself from those kinds of fats is essential fatty acids, EFAs. And have I mentioned that almost everybody's deficient in EFAs unless they're taking their Ultimate EFA Plus? If you have any health issue, you should be taking your Ultimate EFA Plus. But especially cardiac or heart issues, especially brain health issues, especially skin issues, and especially immune issues. Why? Because all of these systems are highly energetic. The heart, the brain, the skin, and the immune system. If you're deficient in EFAs, and almost everybody is, you're going to have immune issues. You're going to have skin issues. You're going to have mental health issues and brain health issues, and you're going to have cardiovascular issues. And that's what we all have. I'm not saying that these are magical and you're going to cure all your diseases with EFAs, but you sure should be supplementing with them. And they're so important that if you are deficient in them, you can actually get your insurance, at least according to the list of billable diagnoses, you can get your insurance company to pay for it. That's how powerful EFAs are. They're literally medicine. All right. And have I mentioned that almost everybody's deficient in EFAs unless they're supplementing? All right. 844-236-6010 is our number. You're listening to The Bright Side. I am Pharmacist Ben. We'll be back right after this. All right, we are back on The Bright Side. 844-236-6010 is our number. We're talking about essential fats, essential fatty acids, EFAs. Most people will say omega-6 and omega-3, but that's not quite exact because there's lots of omega-6s that are not essential. And there's lots of omega-3s that are not essential. Omega-6 and omega-3 just refers to a chemical structural phenomenon. It has to do with the chemistry, the chemical structure, that is. And there's lots of things that have an omega-3 chemical structure and omega-6 chemical structure that are not essential. And this is kind of one of the reasons why fish oil is so confusing for people. Fish oil contains omega-3s, but not necessarily essential fatty acids. There's only two essential fatty acids. Brian Peskin, who writes a lot about this stuff, calls them PEOs, parent essential oils. He calls them parent essential oils. He refers to the fact that they're parent EFAs, omega-6s and omega-3s, that are technically called alpha-linoleic acid and alpha-linolenic acid. And that's a mouthful, LA and ALA. Linoleic acid and alpha-linolenic acid. LA and ALA, those are the parents. And from those, all kinds of breakdown products come through, are formed. Metabolites. This concept of metabolites, by the way, is really important to understand. I always have a hard time when I'm talking to people who don't listen to this program or people who don't really understand nutrition, explaining this concept of metabolites. Metabolites are breakdown products, and breakdown products have activity. Not all just because something's a breakdown product doesn't mean it's broken down, it's not working anymore. It just means it has different activity. And this is this whole idea of metabolites and breakdown products and how things shape-shift is really what chemistry is all about. And so understanding the concept of metabolites, breakdown products, things that result from other things, I guess you could say. That's the pathways. That's really critical to understand if you're going to take advantage of nutrition. For example, omega-6, or we'll say LA, linoleic acid, omega-6 essential fatty acid, is broken down to form something called arachidonic acid. And other fat, I don't want to get into too much of the names because it's kind of overwhelming, but we'll say that your omega-6s get broken down into molecules that are involved with inflammation. This is why people say they're inflammatory. It's not that they're inflammatory. They get broken down into molecules that are associated with inflammation, but not all those molecules are associated with inflammation. Some of them are. In fact, there is one breakdown product, i.e. metabolite, of omega-6, linoleic acid, that is really important. Super duper important for anti-inflammation, and it's so important that it can be used for women who have menstrual problems. It is one of the most powerful of all the essential fatty acid metabolites. It's an omega-6 metabolite. Remember, omega-6 is, everybody tells you it's inflammatory. Well, it turns out one of these metabolites is called GLA, gamma-linolenic acid, and this gamma-linolenic acid, and it's not linoleic, by the way, it's gamma-linolenic acid. Go figure. There's some reasons for that, of course. But anyway, GLA, which is a breakdown product of the so-called inflammatory, some people will call it the bad omega-6 or EFA, is not at all. It's super important, especially for women who are having PMS issues. Really important, but also for skin issues, for eczema. Remember, these are energizing. GLA is a calming substance. Comes from omega-6, but it's calming, and it has an ability to stimulate growth. It's one of the all-time great, in my opinion, one of the all-time great underappreciated and under-leveraged nutritional supplements, gamma-linolenic acid. I'm pretty sure, I don't want to swear to this, but I'm pretty sure Udo's Blend has it in there. I got to go check that out. Anyway, GLA acts to balance out inflammatory molecules, inflammatory metabolites. And by the way, EFAs get broken down into forming the critical elements in the cytokine storm. Cytokine storm is the thing that happens when your body reacts to something like a virus real badly. It's called the cytokine storm. Cytokines are they're really cool, actually. They're cells that induce movement of other cells. Cyto means cells, kine means movement. They stimulate movement of the immune system. They activate the immune system so that white blood cells and all the B cells and T cells and antibodies and all the divisions of the immune system are activated by these cytokines. A cytokine storm is when they're really activated, and people die from cytokine storms, because you get all of these inflammatory chemicals. GLA calms everything down. GLA is one of the best things you could do to prevent a cytokine storm. These cytokine storms, these cytokine molecules have names like leukotrienes, and they're not. I'm not sure if they're technically cytokines, but they help stimulate the whole inflammatory cascade. And by the way, a lot of drugs now, they use drugs that inhibit leukotrienes. Asthma drugs will inhibit leukotrienes to kind of calm everything down. They do it artificially. The new drugs, they actually shoot down the leukotrienes. They kill them. They create antibodies to them. Anyway, I hope this isn't too much in the weeds. Take-home message here, take your fats. Make sure you're working on your fat absorption. Supplement with gamma-linolenic acid, GLA, especially if you have eczema or you have PMS. Make sure you're using a balance of omega-6s and omega-3s. Don't pay attention to any nutritionists or dietitians or lay people or anybody who says, don't worry about omega-6, we get plenty of them. I still hear that. It's wrong information. Bad information. You need them both. If you can't use, if you sunburn readily, if you have sensitive skin, like everything, there are people who can't put anything on their skin. It's really sensitized. If you can't use retinol or retinoic acid, these are all indicators that you need more essential fatty acids. In fact, you can test this out for yourself. If you're one of these people out there who has sensitive skin, everything you put on your skin makes it sensitive, or not everything, but a lot of things make it sensitive, or make it tingly or itch or raw or irritated. Supplement with EFAs. Watch what happens. If you can't use retinol, if you tried to use retinol or retinoic acid, if you got a prescription, and you can't use it, and you're one of those, I can't use retinol, which is too bad because it's an amazing skincare ingredient, topical ingredient. supplement with your Ultimate EFAs for a month. And then use your retinol again. Watch what happens. I guarantee you, your skin will be less sensitive. Our bodies are always talking to us, people. We don't listen, but they're always talking to us. We got to speak body. We got to speak skin. Let's see if we can get Lydia on real quick here. Lydia, what's going on? I wouldn't have taken it for anybody but you because we're almost out of time. What's going on?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I believe you. No, anyway, I just wanted to say that I went to a dermatologist yesterday for a mole that I decided not to have her removed. But anyway, that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because she said that vitamin D was a myth, that you get it from the sun.
Ask her if she wants. Well, she's right about that. You totally get it from the sun, but people are wearing sunscreens. You should get it from the sun. Ask her if she wants to come on the radio.
Oh,
I'm looking for somebody because I always talk to an echo chamber. I don't like that.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? I want to talk to people who have opposite opinions. That's why I said I have a standing invitation to anybody who wants to talk COVID, and a standing invitation to any medical professionals who think anything about nutritional supplementation is a myth.
I will look for that. I will look. I will look for that. I just want to ask you one more thing before you got to go. She said that I had sun damage on my legs from there's these white spots. They're very little. They don't bother me at all. But that's true.
It could be. It could be. It could be what's called hypopigmentation from the sun. Absolutely. So, yeah, once the white spots, if you don't have any pigment cells there's not much you could do about that. Thanks for calling, though, Lydia. Hope you're well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, bye. All right, that's all for now. We got Rebecca Dawson coming up in our next segment. I'm Pharmacist Ben. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll return after this. Okay, we are back on The Bright Side. I'm Pharmacist Ben, and we're on the air Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 Pacific and 10 to 11 Central Time, and 24/7 on the archive page at benfuchsarchives.com. Thank you to Peter in the UK for setting that one up for us. Also available at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, and criticalhealthnews.com, as are all the longevity products. And a Join the Team link that you can click on if you want to start a home-based business that helps change the world with the power of nutrition and nutritional supplementation. Call 866-735-2470 or check out our blog and videos and lots of news stories and interesting interviews all at brightsideben.com, pharmacistben.com, or criticalhealthnews.com. And please take a look at our Truth Skin Health products at truthtreatments.com. Never any preservatives, fragrances, fillers, waxes, emulsifiers, water, vegetable oil, nothing your skin doesn't need or doesn't want in any of our Truth Skin Health products. And our 1,200 plus 4- and 5-star reviews are all available for your perusal at truthreview.com, truthreview.com. Well, I am really looking forward to our guest today. I'm a fan. I told her I was a fan, and man, her stuff is good. She is a channel from Australia. RebeccaDawson.net is her website, and her new book is called The Agreement, and she's got all kinds of really good stuff at RebeccaDawson.net. Please welcome to The Bright Side, Rebecca Dawson. Hey, Rebecca.
Hi, Ben. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes.
Great to be here with you.
Thank you for coming on. It's probably, like 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning there? What do we do? What's going on?
Well, it's getting closer to midnight, but that's
it's
okay.
getting close
I'm in
to
my
midnight.
pajamas. I'm all set.
Okay, so you can will be the last thing you do for the day, and you can go to sleep after this. So listen, I want to talk about your books. I want to talk about your stuff. You got so much good stuff. It's just real clear, good stuff. But first, I want to talk about this idea of channeling. I have been throughout history, there's been Helena Blavatsky and and Seth, and there's all kinds of channels out there, and some of them are really good. Not all of them are, in my opinion, but some of them are really, really good, and some of them are like expressing stuff that there's no way they could understand. They're just regular people, and they're talking about cosmic physical truths, like really in-depth stuff. So obviously there's got to be something there. What do you say to people who are skeptical about this idea of channeling?
Well, I think that our concept of channeling is changing now. I know it has for me since I first started channeling when I was just in my late teens. I think that, there's such a definite shift in how we see information coming in from somewhere else or some external source or some other place. that can be difficult to trust, not only for people to listen to or come across, but also for people who are beginning themselves. So I think there's
a fear thing there. Is that what you're saying?
Look, I think so. I think anything that seems to be beyond us is something that there's a lot of caution around, and a lot of analysis, and a lot of interpretation, and a lot of editing. But I think, if we start to look at channeling as an inherent capacity for all humans to access a deeper level of wisdom from within, it makes it a much more natural expression of truth. And I feel that there's a fundamental shift towards that view of channeling that's happening right now, which makes it easier for people, I think, to access and listen to.
Could it be that it's not from outside, that it's like part of, they have these savants, the phenomena of savants who can do art and do mathematics and do like Rain Man kind of things, but they can't do it themselves, but there's a part of them that can do it, obviously, because they do it. So is it kind of like there's a part of us like it's located in that sort of place that we don't have access to under ordinary circumstances that's still us, do you think?
Look, I do think that. I mean, if we understand that everything is connected and that we exist in totality as one consciousness through different expressions, of course, different individuals and different experiences. But if we really, believe in unification and a unified field of existence, then there's no reason that we can't access
everything
through ourselves and everything. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
So I don't think channeling sits beyond that view. I think it's a part of that view.
Okay, so how did you wake up one day and just start doing it? And do you talk in a different voice? I mean, is it just come out with your hand and you write? How does that work?
Well, I'm a voice channeler. I won't call myself a trance channeler because I'm very present when it's happening for me. So it did happen spontaneous for me one day. It wasn't something that I planned or
you were just
really
standing there and
wanted to do.
What happened? What happened, Rebecca? You're just standing there and all of a sudden you thought of something, or how did that work?
Well, I was giving someone some advice who had come to me ever since I was quite a young child. For some reason, people tended to come to me for advice. They seemed to like my clarity around things, which seemed quite strange for me as a young person. So someone had been through a relationship breakup and decided to come and speak with me. And as I was sitting there speaking with them, suddenly I felt my whole body expand, and all of a sudden it wasn't my voice that was speaking, and the information that was coming out wasn't something that I had any concept or memory for. And the whole thing went for about an hour, and I was sitting cross-legged on my lounge room floor, and my legs were numb afterwards.
Wow.
It felt like a few minutes for me, and it was an hour. And that was the first time it ever happened.
Okay, so your work is all about empowerment. Everything you do is about making people better, but making people better, not just like mentally better, emotionally better, but making them better as energy beings, if you will, as something not human, a part of us that's not ordinary, you will say, and make us better from that level. So what is it that you want people to know most?
Well, actually, I would just reposition that a little bit, because I think that so often we try to transcend ourselves as humans. Even the concept of ascension, which is moving to something bigger and better. I think a lot of what we bring through and the information we bring through is reminding people and helping people to understand what their real capacity is, so that we can become more human. Because what we know as human now is flawed. It's almost like a flawed system of humanity, when in essence we're created in a much more divine blueprint. So a lot of the information we're bringing through now is how to become more human, which is not a detriment to us. It's actually the empowerment of us to get us back to
superhuman.
What we're really designed for. That's
like
right. Exactly.
Yeah. So listen, Rebecca. So am I talking to you, or am I talking to this entity? Is it an entity? Is it an entity, or is it a group, or what exactly is this thing?
Well, sometimes the masters come through. I call them my team of masters. Sometimes they come through individually with particular owners, and sometimes they come through as a group consciousness. Depends on the depth of the content and how how involved the content is. But at the moment, you're talking to me.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
but,
so
I can bring them.
But they're probably blended. At this point, they're blended so much, probably. No.
That is true. That is true.
Okay.
But I definitely feel a distinction, and whoever's listening to me can sense a distinction energetically when that happens. Yeah.
Okay, so all indicators, we got to take a break. There's the music. But when we come back, all indicators are that human beings are going, as a mass, are going through something. And I want to talk about that from this perspective, this whatever you're pulling through, what their perspective is on all this stuff, and yours as well. We got Rebecca Dawson on the bright side. Her website is RebeccaDawson.net. It's got all kinds of great stuff on it. Please check it out. We'll be back with more of Rebecca Dawson on the bright side right after this. Okay, we are back on the bright side. We're talking to Rebecca Dawson. Her website is RebeccaDawson.net. Her new book is called The Agreement, and I definitely want to talk about that. But before we get into that, it seems like, Rebecca, we're all going through collectively as human beings and probably individually too, through some kind of big change. What is your perspective on it and your channel master's perspective on that?
Well, I think that, a lot of people are talking about an increase in frequency on the planet, or an increase in vibration, or people waking up. The Great Awakening is a term that's used often. I feel that humanity is almost being reinstated back to what we were really designed for, and that is, according to the masters, as the ultimate creator species. And if we look at our lives at the moment and the way that the systems and structures that we're engaged with work, and indeed how we structure our daily lives, we're really focusing very much, not so much on our creative capacity and what it is that we can do in a new way, but we're very much taken with repetition and management of what already exists, to the extent that so much of our energy is focused on reinforcing things, reinforcing what we already know, reinforcing what we've already created, that we're not actually doing much new. And consciousness is coming to a point on the planet now where something new needs to happen. And for that, I think humanity has to really revert back to the wonderment and curiosity of doing things differently. And quite often we only do that when things stop working for us.
It's like we get comfortable.
So we're having a big shift.
We get comfortable. We get comfortable. So, and change is uncomfortable. And, it's funny because the only thing, creativity and change go hand in hand. They're basically the same thing, right? And everybody fears change. That's the biggest fear. So in a way, we fear our creativity.
Absolutely, because really, to be completely creative, we can't really have a sense of predictability.
Yeah.
We do things to see from the present moment, to see what that permutation will be, how things will work out. But the mind doesn't like that. The mind likes to be able to predict.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what drives our life, is predictability. We do anything for predictability. We'll kill ourselves for predictability, literally, with cigarettes and bad habits, just for predictability.
That's right. And the great irony there is we think that if things are predictable, that they keep us safe.
Yeah, right.
And I think they keep us where we are. And, it's the nature of consciousness to continually expand. And so the question here is humanity expanding, or is it on a repeat cycle?
What do you think? You think we're expanding?
I think we're now beginning to expand beyond the repeat cycle, and I think that's the friction we're seeing in the world at this time, because our consciousness is moving beyond the limitation of those cycles.
Gravitational field, like a gravitational field pulling things in. When the nature's expansion. So you talk a lot about this idea of emotion from a cosmic perspective. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Sorry, did you say emotion or
emotion from a
cosmic?
No, emotion from a cosmic perspective.
Emotion.
Yeah.
Yes. So we tend to think of them. I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So we tend to think of emotions as a reaction, and we tend to think of emotions too as something that's potentially problematic. Oftentimes they can be causing things within our body. Oftentimes they can be responses because of thoughts or judgments. But what we don't see emotions as is natural expression of energy. And emotions will continue to express themselves in new and creative ways if we actually allow them to. One thing that's really happening now on the planet, which is interesting about emotions, is that we tend to be experiencing things in a more collective way now. But because we're so conditioned and wired to interpreting everything on a personal level, for example, if you're feeling irritated or angry on a particular day, it's easy to think, well, I'm irritated or I'm angry, rather than there is a lot of anger and irritation in the collective field right now. So we tend to think that if we're feeling intensity of emotion, that it's problematic, when in actuality we're becoming very grandiose in our capacity to sense what's happening in the world. So it can be a really, really great sign. But the masters will also talk about how emotions are creative urges as well, and that it's quite wonderful when an emotion arises, because it can be an act of creation if expressed in a very conscious way.
I'm trying to get my mind around that. Emotions as creative urges. So let's take the emotion of anger. How is that? How do you see that? Because it makes you do something? It compels you to action?
Well, I mean, anger can be incredibly useful. But
creative.
Of course, because it's a very action-driven emotion, and anger gets things expressed very quickly.
How about sadness?
It can be a real breakthrough energy.
How about sadness or depression? Yeah, how's that creative?
Well, it's interesting because I don't actually see depression as an emotion.
Sadness? How about sadness?
Yeah, so sadness as an emotion certainly is
how's it creative?
An opportunity. How's it creative? Because it gets you to fold back into who you are and what you feel. And from that place of sadness, something else can arise if it's acknowledged. I think the difficulty sometimes with grief and sadness is we want it to go away.
Resistance?
Exactly. And so it doesn't actually get fully embodied, and then something else has an opportunity to rise from that space. So it's interesting, the relationship we have with our emotions.
All right. So you talk about time a lot, too, which is very intriguing to me. I've always been fascinated with this idea of time. What exactly... you have a chapter in your book, or a section in your book, called Disengaging Thought from Linear Reality. What's the relationship of thought to time? Linear reality I'm thinking of as time. What's the relationship of thought to time, and how do you disengage?
Well, this is a really, really interesting chapter in the book, and I have to say that when that information was first coming through from the masters, it really took me some time to sit with it, to get my head around it. Because
ironically,
in many ways,
time.
I'm sure if you've read it, that's right, it can be quite counterintuitive to how we think thought and manifesting and creation works. So it takes some time to sit with this concept.
Of no time.
In a nutshell, that's right. In a nutshell, because we see everything as linear within 3D, we have an idea that the thought comes before the thought and the intention, and then the creation or the manifestation.
But there really is no time.
The masters are suggesting, that's right. So it can all happen simultaneously. But how we unpick that is we allow something to be created, and then we understand that the thought or the understanding of it is actually retrospective.
So how do you disengage?
So it happens last.
How do you disengage from this way, this seemingly built-in way of thinking sequentially? How do you disengage from that?
I think, again, it's really watching your senses and emotions and what's happening in you physically. Because if you can be with yourself physically, you start to notice what's arising within you emotionally. So it's physical first, then emotion or feeling state, as the masters like to describe it. And then you start to notice that the thought comes in last. Now, when thought comes in last, something's already happened in that space.
In the body.
Something's happened before the thought came in to identify it. Correct. So it's about, a lot of other teachers talk about this, about being fully present. If you're present, you notice.
You can see how it forms. You can see how it forms, how it takes shape.
Of course. And in that way, new things arise rather than the mind predicting and attempting to create the same thing over and over again.
That's all. That's awesome. So the emotions are kind of like a link between the mind and the thought, no?
Look,
between the body and the thought. Between the body and the thought.
Between the body and the thought, absolutely. And if we substitute the word emotion for feeling state, that opens a whole other can of worms about sensorial.
Oh my goodness. I wish we could dive into the can of worms, but we're just out of time. So that's it. Rebecca, thank you so much for everything you're doing. Really, really appreciate it. And the books are awesome. And I encourage everybody to check out RebeccaDawson.net. Have a beautiful evening, and thank you for coming on The Bright Side.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care, Rebecca. That was Rebecca Dawson. Her website is RebeccaDawson.net. Super interesting stuff. Lots of great videos, which I plan on checking out myself. And that's all the time we have for today on The Bright Side. Thanks for listening. I'm Pharmacist Ben. Have a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to you later, folks. Bye for now.